Welcome to Office Hours. Today is October 24th. No, it's not. It's the 21st. And we're here to talk about all things SEO. And so, as is our tradition, we like to start off with a success story. So I think that our newest member, Tricia Clements, will jump us off with her success story after she tells us a little bit about what she does for a living.
Okay, so Tricia Clements, I live in Atlanta, and I help small businesses with Google My Business is my primary biggest thing that I work with. And I do some social media for some clients as well, and a little bit of local SEO, getting more into helping local SEO, because my biggest focus is Google My Business, but I want to add more into it to help my clients with. And my most recent success story has to do with Google My Business. So I had a former client come to me, and she's only former because she's in real estate, and they have it's a very competitive, and she was focusing on other areas. But I had thankfully done an audit on her Google My Business a little less than a year ago. And she all of a sudden contacted me and says, I need help. My Google My Business listing vanished from the map. And I'm like, oh, that didn't happen. It's in there somewhere. Usually like it's suspended or something like that. No, it was gone, completely 100% gone. And I was able to get back so far her reviews are back, which is for the most important thing. She had 16 5-star reviews. And I was able to get those back for her, and she is happy. And then she left me a Google review saying that Tricia Clements is a miracle worker.
Nice.
So I love that. So that was my big thing, because sometimes when I help clients with Google My Business, I get really excited about things I'm able to do. And then the client's like, oh, gee, thank you. And they don't understand the importance of it. So I was really excited when I got that review from her. So
that's a great success story. Yes. That's something to definitely be proud of.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a success story they'd like to start us off with today?
Yeah, I will. It's sort of loosely SEO related.
That's all right.
So last week was the big Autism New Jersey convention. And this year it was all virtual, which was very new. So we set up a virtual vendor table there, advertised that several of our employees were actually speakers at the convention this year. And we also ran a giveaway that over 20 people entered, which was great. We got about, we're a very small business. We got, I think, about 30 visitors to our webpage that we would not have otherwise gotten. We got about 10 new inquiries for services, which is amazing for us.
Great.
Now we're thinking of implementing that giveaway strategy into more of a regular social media occurrence. To help get engagement up through social media and also get more engagement with the services we're offering in our website in general.
That's wonderful. That's great news. I love how you brought it back to how many new inquiries you got, not just to traffic. I mean, that's money there. Yeah. That's super.
Yeah, we're excited.
That is great. Well, Lavanya, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Did you think of your success story yet?
No, I don't have one.
I think you're successful for being here.
Thank you.
My success story is more of a client management issue. I had hired a third-party developer to help a client. Actually, I should say I've been working with a third-party developer to help a client work with some page speed issues on their website. Unfortunately, that did not go very well. And the developer was not able to help them as much as we had hoped. And it was kind of frustrating all around, where the developer was frustrated because it was really, really hard to do. And the client was frustrated because it didn't feel like it made much progress. And I was frustrated because I was, I want the client to succeed. But I also empathize with the developer that it was very frustrating to do. And we kind of, I don't know if we've talked about Web Core Vitals in office hours before, but it's kind of Google's way of quantifying page speed. And gosh, it is really, really difficult. And we only have 2 or 3 months before it's an official ranking factor, and it's just proving to be very, very hard. I think Google's going to have to pivot on it. But the success story is I was just very worried about the client and how the client would take this. And this was not good news, you know, and it was not anything anybody wanted, from the developer to the client to me. But, you know, I just really appreciate the client's long-term view and understanding how, okay, this is one piece of the puzzle. And they asked the right questions. So what else can we do? And I was like, success, like, good. We're not just harping on what didn't happen. We're kind of thinking, okay, great, what can we do? And so we're coming up with a plan of action and learning from our mistake. I don't know where the mistake was at this point, you know, but it just felt good to work through a difficult problem with a client. And I think the success is just a great relationship with the client and everybody just benefiting from it. So anyway, that was kind of my success story, which is a little obscure, but I mean, so much of, I think what we talk about here ends up being client management kind of issues.
Yeah,
because that just happens so often. But anyway, so that's where we are this week. We didn't have any pre-asked questions, so I would just open to the floor. If anybody have any questions, if not, I have a question for all of you.
I have a question based kind of on your page speed that when you said that, I was like, oh, my first thing was when I was listening to it, well, you know, you have somebody that helps with page speed. That's kind of comes up a bit for me. And while it's not specifically an immediate issue, it's something that I think will come up more. I have one client that was able to change hosting and their page speed improved dramatically. And so that was the first one. And so, but then they still have things to work on. Yeah. And so I've got other things I'm doing before that. But that's something that will be coming up in the next few months with them. So, and I just signed up, was it yesterday? So I haven't gotten very far in the training stuff. Is that something that is talked about, or just something we talk about in office hours as far as site speed?
So yeah, that was what I was going to transition to. Okay. One of the steps is to set up Google Search Console.
I do have that. I do that on all mine. Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason, and I recommend that everybody check that literally every Monday morning. Just first thing you should do is check Search Console for all your clients. Because if there's a problem, or if there's a change in how Google is reading your website, you're going to see it there. Okay. You know, a few weeks ago, we found Allie's website had some weird issues, and we were able to kind of work through Search Console, helped us identify things that we didn't know were problems. Okay. But at the bottom of the dashboard for your Search Console is a listing for Web Core Vitals.
Okay.
And that is what we're talking about.
Okay. You said that, and I wasn't 100% sure I knew what that was, but now that you say that, I do. Okay. Okay.
So for everybody's benefit, Web Core Vitals is Google's attempt to quantify page speed. Page speed is so hard to quantify because it is very subjective. For instance, I have gigafiber at my house, in my office. So things run pretty fast here, but not everybody has that benefit. So how does Google decide what fast is? And you can't really do it by time, because how do you even measure time? It's functions so many things. So what Google has done is taken page speed together and it narrowed it down to 3 specific metrics. Let me do let me do something here and show us on our screen. So
good, because I was kind of looking, and I'm not sure I see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I see it now.
Okay, it's near the bottom.
It's under enhancement. Well, mine's kind of towards the top. It's under enhancements in mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, unfortunately, not every website's going to have data there, but here is the web core vitals. There are three ways that Google will be quantifying page speed for websites. And it's basically announced that in January, these are going to be ranking factors.
Okay.
At what we don't know is where they will fit within the 200 or so ranking factors that are already out there. Is this going to be the number one ranking factor? Probably not. Is this going to be number 200? Probably a little bit more than that, but it's going to be somewhere in there. And so we just need to pay attention. So the three things have to do with, first one's called Largest Contentful Paint, which measures the loading performance of the largest item on your site. That could be an image, that could be a JavaScript file, that could be applet, it could be any number of things, but whatever the largest thing is, that is what they're measuring. How long it takes to load that. It needs to load in less than 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds. First input delay is how long it takes before your website is interactive. And it should be faster than 100 milliseconds. That's 1/10 of a second. And then cumulative layout shift, which is actually one of these things that once you know what it is, you're like, oh yeah, I hate that. I'm so glad this is a ranking factor. Cumulative layout shift is when a website loads and then suddenly it lurches, often vertically. So if you'll notice, sometimes you'll be looking at something as a website loads and then it'll like suddenly shift down a little bit. That's content layout shift. So we have to pay attention to these three scores when it comes to our website. And oftentimes what it requires is a reprogramming of how the website was built. It's not, so first input delay would be a factor of how, like if you have a bad web host, will affect the first input delay. So if you have a slow web host, that it's not going to get to the first input for a while.
You said the LCP, that would be a web host?
No, FID.
FID, okay.
FID is probably more of a function of web host. Largest Contentful Paint is kind of an issue where, hey, I know we love to have these very large, beautiful images, but ain't nobody got time to wait for your 10 megabyte image to load on your homepage.
Yeah,
right?
I have a problem with the client on that, and they're on Squarespace.
Yep.
And I'm like, they literally, Squarespace cannot tell me where a file is on their system that I have the URL to delete it because it's ginormous.
Right, exactly.
And I'm like, I said that it's this file and Squarespace can't tell you where to find it. So change to WordPress.
Well, that might be it. Or, I mean, it doesn't have to be an image. It could be a big JavaScript file.
It is a file. I went through GT metrics and went down and was looking at the waterfall, and there's one file that stands out like as the worst on all of them.
Right.
And I don't understand if I have the URL, why Squarespace can't find it.
Yeah, I don't either. But if that is the largest item and it takes longer than 2.5 seconds,
yes,
it's a problem.
Yeah.
And then cumulative layout shift is really, it's really how fundamentally your website was coded. So if your website wasn't coded in light of thinking about this, you could be causing yourself problems. I've made developers cry over these things. These are really tough problems. I am still looking for someone who can really manage it. In fact, I had one of my clients, internal developer, fixed it. We're like, awesome. And then next week, Google said, nope, not good enough, and shifted on us. So we're like, crap, we're back to square one. But this is, so don't measure page speed based on your experience or a number of seconds. You look at these three things and it breaks it down into a very specific measure. Now you can get to this through your search console. You can also do it by doing the page speed test, page speed insights. Guess what? It's already queued up, right? So if we just did, you can see how bad my site is.
Now, question. So sometimes I put the whole thing in and sometimes I leave the HTTPS www off. Is that a problem?
I would definitely use the full canonical URL, not letting, because it will factor in redirects in the page speed. So the first thing to notice on this is we need to check the mobile version. Hey, puppy. Not the desktop version. Google is ranking our websites based on the mobile version. So look at the mobile version. This is a score out of 100. Yellow is okay. We ideally want it to be green. So over a 90 is what we're aiming for on mobile. But the good thing is it tells us exactly where the problem is. First Contentful Paint, 2 and 3 seconds. That's less than 2.5. I get a green on that. Time to interactive.
Yeah.
That's a problem, right? Largest Contentful Paint, 6.5 seconds. Not good, right? Cumulative Layout Shift, 1.48 is actually pretty good, but because it's down, it's below the 0.2, but I don't know why they're giving me a bad score on that. But if you go down, it'll tell you. Now, you actually do need to go through this is just for your homepage. So you'd have to go through every page to say how every page performs. That's why Google Search Console's data is really helpful, because it will tell you across your site how you're doing.
So say that again. I was looking at something.
Yeah. So remember the page speed insights we're looking at here tests one page at a time.
Okay.
You need to test your entire site. That's
Oh,
why looking in Search Console to see how your website's performing is so important, because it can identify pages that are like this one tend to be this problem.
oh, I thought it was doing the whole website. Does GT Metrics do the whole website, or it still have to do
I
down
think
to
it's
the page?
page by page on GT Metrics.
Oh, okay.
So just know that's one thing I think people get really confused on. They'll work on their homepage, and meanwhile their interior landing pages where people are getting their Google search traffic are really sucking.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's these 3 web core vitals that Google's going to be using. So pay attention to these. Look in your Search Console. Get talking to your developer about possibly improving these between now and the early next year, because my website's pretty new and it's not that great. It's not terrible. I've seen low. I've seen 13.
What was it?
I've seen
I had
0.
one that had a 2 or 3, and that was the one I was telling you about that had, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a client with a 0, and it turns out they had 5 10 megabyte hero images in a slider.
Oh.
So it was an easy fix, but we had to fight them because they loved their 5 images. So.
Well, they could, would instead of, I'm not a big fan of sliders. I try when I can to not use them and to try to convince clients to not use them. But if they wanted it, is it something that if those images were so big, they could compress them? They could compress them and then replace those images, and would that help?
Yeah, it helped to a certain degree.
Certain degree.
Right, and you would have to use this to see if it's helping you enough.
Yeah.
Because what this tells you, if your site has enough data, it will tell you whether or not you pass the Web Core Vitals problem.
Okay.
And we want to pass, obviously.
Yeah.
We have a few months left in order to pass, but I was actually on the phone with my developer yesterday, saying we need to get this in the queue and get this worked on. So yeah, just something to know. And what I like about page speed as a solution or a thing to do is that, yeah, okay, it's going to affect your SEO, but it's also going to help your social media, because so much of social media is consumed on mobile devices that your page speed is really important. And you can have a really effective Facebook campaign, but if your page loads forever, On a mobile device, ain't nobody gonna wait for that, right? You're doing an email campaign. So much of email is consumed on mobile devices. You need to make sure your website loads fast so that people wait for your web page to load when they get the email. So doing this, even if it's not a real big deal for SEO, even if we find out Google gave us a, wouldn't be a surprise that Google gives us a false alarm and this really doesn't matter too much for SEO, it still would help a lot of your efforts by improving these things. So I love SEO tactics that also help your other marketing channels, because then you can double up. Lavanya, I'm gonna put you on the spot because you're probably our most technical attendee. Have you played with this yet?
Oh yeah, I've been all in this one and G metrics. I go between both of them.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
What have you found works? What are some of the biggest wins when it comes to improving page speed?
Well, when I started out, my issue was pictures.
Yeah.
I had to use like Smush to lower my pictures or remove some of them to increase the speed.
And we use Be Funky to resize most of our photos so that they're smaller on the website and don't take up quite as much space.
I have a question about that. So I use do something as well. I use Short Pixel, and so typically what I do is I run it through that before I put it on the website. But let's say you have a client or you have a site that has been going for a long time and has a ton of stuff on there. There's no way it wouldn't be feasible to go back in and do everything. It would just take so much time.
Smush should do a bundle for you. It'll do
Just,
it
I
all
was
at
going
once.
to say a
for you.
plugin. Would that be the best alternative for that? Because Short Pixel has a plugin that I use.
Well, I know Smush has is a plugin also, but it also has the option where to do it all at once for you.
Yeah, that's
as a
how.
bundle.
Yeah.
Okay. And then sometimes it depends on the picture. You can also, well, I know with WordPress, you can crop the picture down some as well.
Yeah, in WordPress. Okay, I haven't done that.
Yeah. Lavanya, you bring up a really good point. And it's something Google specifically says about page speed, is that the fastest item to load on a page is the item that you don't load. Sometimes you just have to take things off your website.
Yeah.
And you have to decide, okay, do I want 10 slides in my hero image? Are they so important that I'm willing to lose visitors because it takes a long time to load my site? Is it that important?
Yeah.
It might be. I'd argue you'd have a real hard time making that case, but it might be. And if that's the case, then okay, then keep it. But sometimes you just have to make things go. Now, I find that things go cyclical. So now once in a few years, everybody will be on 5G and our bandwidth will be unlimited and this won't be a problem anymore. But then there'll be another technology that'll come out in 10 years. And suddenly now we're all worried about our websites loading too large because we bloated, we took advantage of 5G. And it just goes cyclical. So now we're in this time when it's like, okay, start removing things from your website, because it doesn't have to remove everything, but just make sure you're putting stuff on your website that really matters.
Yeah.
And what you'll end up doing by making these decisions is it might help things like conversion rate, because you might have a less distracting website.
Oh, and another thing to look at with page speed is plugins. How many plugins do you have?
Yeah, that's very true with WordPress. And with WordPress, don't just deactivate plugins you're not using, delete them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Lavanya, I'm hoping that you can help guide us through this, because we're all going to be struggling with this here. But yeah, so anyway, it's something for us all to be paying attention to.
Yeah.
This is the Web Core Vitals page from Google, is pretty technical, but it does at least give you an idea of what's going on. And if your developers are having a hard time, I refer them here. There's some videos, and I can I can share a video from Google, a developer, pardon me, working through some of these problems with the website, because this is basically something we are all struggling with, and it's going to involve changing the way we think about web design, and making sure we're only doing what's necessary rather than everything we would love to see. So.
Yeah, and that was one thing I did recently. I think when I said I had a client that had a slider, it really wasn't for user experience. It was just kind of there. Oh, this is pretty. Let's do this, and I got them to take it. They let me change it, so I was pleased with that.
That's great. So, that's a win. I mean,
yeah, I was happy because it didn't really do anything for it, and they were images that they had put text on, and they hadn't put a mobile version of it. So when you looked at it on your cell phone, it was like words cut off.
Oh boy, yeah.
So, and I was like, yeah, we just need to get rid of this. So they let me change it. I put an image, and then I put the text so it's mobile friendly and all too.
Yeah,
so.
Good. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to ask my question. I'm reserving the right to ask my question.
So I have questions, but I'll let you go first.
Okay.
I wrote down some questions, but I
wrote down some questions. Okay. Ali, Lavanya, do you have any specifics today?
Oh, no.
Okay. My question really is, when looking at the overall game plan, roadmap, whatever we're calling it these days, what step are you at in the process? I saw that look.
Pass.
all over the place. That's my problem. I start and I go here, and then I'm like, oh, here, and I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
But like I said, as far as your plan that I'm now starting to go by, I've just started, as you know, so I'm not far into that. So
okay.
Well, I'm still stuck on the keyword and blog, because I want to make sure like I have good topics.
Yep.
And at the same time, I have to take time to write these blogs out. So that's what I'm kind of working on. That's where I'm kind of stuck at, because I want to make sure I have good content.
Well, hopefully this helps. You don't have to write all your blogs at once. What if you set yourself a goal to write one every month?
Oh, because I thought you said that in one of our other sessions that it's good to have at least 2 or 3.
I'd say it's good to start with 2 or 3, but if you can even if you're just doing one a month, even if it takes you 2 months to do one.
Oh.
Pace yourself. You don't have to write everything at once, but the more frequently you do it, the more beneficial it'll be. But I wrote a blog post in my blog for the first time in months, right? Because I just don't have time to do it. I hope it was helpful. I researched it. I worked hard on it, but it just takes a lot of time to do it right. And it's always quality over quantity, right?
Yeah.
So don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. If you can just get one out a month, you're doing great.
Oh, okay.
And then go back later, because the way I wrote the process out is it's not only do the steps, but every few so often you need to go back to that step. So that's why I said, I said publish a blog post every week, but not everybody can do that, right?
Right.
Some people could do it more often. If they can, great.
Yeah, I used to.
Yeah, I can't keep up with that at this point. So I go for one a month.
But I did.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, we're trying to do something new. I came up with an idea for us, because we were in a place where I would get an email with like 10 blog posts in a week and then nothing for a month.
Yeah.
So what we're doing now is I created a rotating schedule so that we're going to plan ahead, and all the people who are responsible for blog posts will rotate through it so that there's one due each week, so that in theory you only have to write one every like 6 weeks or so. And then we can pre-plan the topics to be relevant to the time of year, whether it be, Halloween upcoming or the fall or the, winter blues or whatnot. So that's something that we actually have a big marketing meeting tomorrow that we're going to hopefully start implementing to kind of take the pressure off of like, oh man, we haven't posted a blog in 3 weeks. We need to get something out there. Like, who has time to do it? And also for everyone to be able to brainstorm. And so even if you come up with an idea that maybe that you're not well versed in, maybe someone else in the group is, and we can implement that.
Yeah.
Like a few weeks ago, I think we talked about this. We had gotten so one of the services we provide is IEP advocacy, and IEP is individualized education plan. And sometimes parents don't really know how to basically hold the school responsible for a good IEP. So one of the services we offer is an advocate for that. We had gotten some traffic onto that page on our website, most likely because school is partially virtual this year. So we followed up with that by doing a blog the next week about IEPs and advocacy and going through. And it actually got a lot of traffic in the next few weeks because we were kind of going on where we already saw people going. And even though I don't specialize in IEP, I was able to source that out to another staff member who is, and she wrote the blog, and we were able to capitalize on that traffic.
That's great.
And we actually got a customer out of it too. So.
Great. Even better.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you can pass to someone who's an expert in that area.
Yeah.
Because then it probably is a lot easier for them to write it than you to write it.
Exactly.
You're smart, don't get me wrong. But if they, it's probably more of a problem for them to limit themselves. Like they could write a whole book on this in some cases, but so that's great to be able to delegate that to say, all right, and I'm not opposed to bribery. Like I've sent beer and or Starbucks gift cards to people in an organization willing to blog for it.
Well, that's actually something that we do have, like an incentive program for certain things within our company. So like we also do a podcast and we have incentives for participating in the podcast. We also have a lottery for our own employees. So if you are working with someone and they do a great job, you can nominate them. And then if that person wins, the person who nominated them also wins, and it's like a bonus that you get.
Nice.
And then we were thinking of implementing something similar for the blog post, like either a monetary compensation or some kind of some sort of incentive to get people more excited about participating. So.
Yeah. Because I mean, it is people taking time, right? And
yeah,
you have an expert on fulfilling IEPs for students with autism. Like that's a real expertise, and they deserve some sort of compensation. Now it could be part of their job and they're getting compensated, right? But like
this is also a way for us, because like most of the people right now who that responsibility is falling on, we're all salaried full time, and a lot of us don't necessarily have the extra time to do that. So by offering an incentive for our part-time employees to do something like that, it helps take that responsibility off of our shoulders, have our part-time employees feel like they're contributing something more meaningful than just what they're doing in their regular hours, and then also getting good content from a bunch of different perspectives. So hopefully it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. And if you could combine that with what Lavania's doing in terms of identifying phrases or ideas that people are searching for.
Oh yeah. That's
and then making, then you get the best of both worlds. But it's, going kind of back to Lavania, one of the reasons, there's lots of good reasons to blog on a regular basis, but one of the reasons to do it regularly is because it gives Google a reason to come back to your site. And so if you launched all 10 blog posts at once, then, well, great. And over time, those blog posts will bring in traffic and they will help. There's lots of great things that will come from that. But if you spread them out over time, then Google's like, oh, there's something new there. Oh, there's something new there. Oh, there's something new there. And it keeps having to or wanting to come back. And I think what you'd find is the website would do better because it's an actively maintained site rather than something that gets stagnant. Now, I'm such a hypocrite because I don't do this as much as I would like to either, right? And it's because it's hard. It's really hard, especially when you're a sole proprietor, to do this. But I've worked with other partners and stuff like that to make sure I can kind of keep things going, but it is not easy. And I get that. I totally get that. But the payoff is really valuable. It's almost to the point where if there's one SEO thing you can only do each month, it would almost be just write another blog post, make it good, make it relevant, and make it unique.
And another thing that we're doing also is trying to look at blog posts from the same time, maybe last year, the year before, that are relevant to this time of year and repost them on social media so that it's already there and just kind of re-sparking the interest in that without actually having to put any man hours behind a new post.
Yeah. No, I do that frequently. I'll go and make a list of everything that's published and just go recycle it.
BuzzFeed does that.
Oh yeah.
I'll be on Facebook and I open BuzzFeed. I'm like, this is from 2016 BuzzFeed. Like, seriously.
Right.
But then you still do it. You still look at it. So it's like.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of sophisticated ways you can do this.
Yeah.
I do that for myself on social media, but then I have a client that I used to work with at some blog posts, and because of the pandemic, their business they've had to scale back some.
Right.
So what they have, I'm not doing any new blog posts for them, but the social media, I'm going back and referencing blog posts from last year this time. This is a pet industry, so it's like, holiday foods that your pets can enjoy with you during this time of years, things like that. And we're posting, then they were last year, the information's still relevant.
Yep.
So.
Good. All right. Well, we just have a few minutes left. So Tricia, you said you had a bunch of questions. I want to make sure I get to those.
Well, let's see. Question on when I was looking at the privacy and cookies. So my question's on the cookie thing.
Yeah.
So some sites have a privacy and cookie policy, and some have the cookie bot pop up.
Right.
When do you need to have that cookie bot pop up?
We had that discussion.
Anya, do you want to share your wisdom here?
You can go ahead, but I think what you said the last time we had this discussion, you leave it up to the client, but let them know that it's available. And then he also recommended if you needed help, Iubenda.
Yeah, I looked at that. I saw that. I looked at that. Yeah.
Yeah, the trick is that there are laws.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're doing business in Europe, there are strict laws that you need to do. If you can even take business from Europe, you need to obey those laws. If you can do business in California, there's another set of laws, and that's the cookie law.
So California is the cookie law?
What's that?
So California has a law on cookie that you have to have like the pop-up?
Yeah, and in the so a lot of people have done, because a lot of people are nationwide, they just go ahead and do the cookie thing for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Brazil just released a law. The US is working on a law. This is going to be happening more. I struggle with giving advice because I don't ever want to say don't obey the law.
Yeah, that's where I'm not sure.
Some people it might not matter if they get in trouble in Europe.
Yeah.
They're unable to do business in Europe.
Yeah.
And some people might not care about doing business in California. Not a political statement about California. It's just the fact that like if you have a local.
That's what most of my business.
Walker, you can't walk in LA.
Area, and they're here in Georgia. So when you say like you let the client know and leave it up to them, like what should you preface it with as far as, well, it's up to you. There are laws, like how do you, like, I don't know. I guess I'm not sure I know what to call the different things that you can just simply include a cookie policy versus the pop-up, like what that's really even called to tell them.
So Iubenda is not only a good service, they're a great resource.
Okay.
And their stuff is vetted by lawyers. So I would let them speak to it because I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
But So I would make sure the first question I'd ask is, do you or can you do business in Europe? If that's true, then they need to read about GDPR
Mhm.
and make sure they're complying with the law. Here is an option. It is up to you. My contract's written. Your job is to maintain your website. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer. I'm just warning you that you could get in trouble if you're doing in Europe. You don't have this.
Yeah.
If you're doing in California, any business, then you need to consider this as well. And not the GDPR, you need to think about the cookie policy.
I think SiteGround, I think they have like a YouTube video that talks about it. And Iubenda employees are the ones that's talking about it, and they can give you more
Okay.
information on it.
Because
Or it
I
might
had
be.
heard of that until today. I was just looking at, what is it, Iubenda today,
Mhm.
from your site, because I'm familiar with Termageddon, and that's all I'd heard of. And I know they don't have a cookie pop-up, and I'm just like, okay, what? So I did, yeah.
Well, and these are services and these are paid services.
Yeah.
So, that's why the client just needs to be informed,
Sure.
understand the implications so they can act appropriately.
Yeah.
Because the best way for a client to succeed is to keep their business open by not getting in trouble with the law.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so just pay attention. I feel very under-equipped to do that. So I'm pushing everybody to the legal authorities because I don't want to give anybody incorrect advice. I just want to make sure people are knowing to consider this and can look at the resources and make an informed decision for their own business.
Yeah.
If they're a small business, they might be able to get away with not doing it for now. But there are laws that might be federal United States laws that might change this soon. And so we just need to be prepared that privacy is important.
Yeah.
And we need to protect it and we need to be prepared.
Okay.
All right. So.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely helps. So yeah. Okay.
It's a vague answer. I'm sorry.
Well, no, that's okay. I mean, that's okay. I'll look a little bit more on Iubenda and see, because I had been using Termageddon, and so I want to check the two out and see on the cookie pop-up and see. So, and
if you want to come back and say what you found out about Termageddon,
I will.
I'm more than happy to recommend a different tool if it's better.
Well, I had actually, because I didn't realize there was Iubenda that had both. I'd never heard of it before until today. And so I actually reached out to Termageddon already and said, because they have a cookie pop-up on their website. And I'm like, and they have cookie policy, but not the pop-up. And so I said, are you working on a cookie pop-up? And so that'd be interesting. I'll be interested to see what they say. So
yeah.
I'll definitely get back on that. And then the only other question that I have is back onto content where we were talking about earlier. And this is more less on blog content and more just like on overall site content. Oh, good. I'll get that, Lavanya, because I want to look at that link for YouTube. Is there because I know blogs can be different than just regular website content. Is there any place that you do or recommend as far as maybe kind of writing the specifics and then having someone else work on the content so it's written clear and you know what I'm saying?
I'm not following you exactly.
For like basically to write the content for your website, not your blog post, but like your website content.
Okay. I don't know. So in my mind, I do make a distinction between blog content, what I call landing page content, which is more of like the main website.
Yes, that's what I'm talking
in my mind, the difference is a blog post is usually more altruistic and helpful, but a landing page or the regular website is more salesy and promotional.
Yes.
Both of them need to assume some sort of keyword research to understand how customers are searching for what we have to offer. And both of them need a significant amount of words for, to be able to talk about the topic knowledgeably.
Yeah.
I hire writers to write this for my clients, like, because they can write it faster than me. They learn the client better, and so I do hire writers to do it. I'm not so concerned with consistent wording or anything like that, but I do keep a record of if a client makes a comment and says, you know what, I don't like the passive voice. Well, I'll make a note of that. And then every article from a writer or every landing page from a writer, I say, oh, by the way, please consider don't use the passive voice.
Yeah.
And I'll keep a record of the notes from each client as they give me input.
Sure.
Don't use passive voice. This is too
Like,
formal
most people
or
don't
not
even know what
formal
passive
enough.
is.
Those kind of things.
Okay.
Sorry. So, yeah, I'm fine with hiring someone to do it, but I always want to make sure that they have a clear topical focus that's relevant and using the phrases that people are using to find my clients.
Okay.
Does that help answer your question?
Yes. And then like, as far as like when you get writers, where do you prefer to go to find like good writers?
Right.
Is I think more my think where I should.
That's a great question, because there are a lot of services that offer writers at a very commoditized price.
Yes.
I've found the services can produce volumes of content. And if I need a volume of content, if I need 100 e-commerce products, I might resort to that.
Yeah.
But I find that it's better for me to hire one. I probably work with maybe a half dozen different writers, and I just keep reusing them. And what I find the value I get is that by reusing the same writer on a client, that writer learns the client faster.
Yeah.
The quality of content I get not only is more happily received because that someone has learned from mistakes in the past, but they actually start seeing stuff and learning the client well, so they're able to volunteer stuff. But if you're doing a commodity like text broker or something like that, they're not growing as they learn. And so I've gotten to the point where my clients will say, only use this writer, because and frankly, that means the approval process is real easy, because they're like, they knew this person wrote it, they know the person knows it, they just publish it. And so the whole approval process, everybody's happy.
Yeah.
The writer's happy because they have a steady income, and they're paid at a premium because they're not just another cog. The client's happy because the quality of content is not only good, but it's getting better every time. I'm happy because the approval process isn't 16 months before we get an article approved for the site, right? Because we just, the client goes, oh, they wrote it, just publish it. Like, great. So yeah, absolutely hire that out. But I recommend finding a couple of good writers, starting there, and then keeping that. I'm always looking for new writers, because
So where
things
do you
happen.
look when you say looking for new writers? Like, is there like Upwork? Where would you start?
I honestly, I have even gone to local job sites and posted a public thing saying I'm looking for writers.
Okay.
And then I do a brief little interview. I let them write a test piece. I pay them for that test piece. And if it's good, I'll call on them again. If it's not as good as I'd like, and I feel I can work with them, I might give them a second chance. If not, I thank them for their time, give them the money, and say goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. And I know that like good writers are going to be a premium, like you said. What is a like average price for a certain number of words that you would say is reasonable?
I tend to pay $100 for about 800 words.
Okay.
And that's low.
Okay.
Anything less than that, I've found tends to be not very good.
Okay.
And
So
I'd rather quality over quantity.
yeah. So if you've got something even smaller, so like, let's say 400 words, would you split that and say, well, $50 for 400? Okay.
Maybe.
Around.
Yeah, I'm willing. I'm working with a new writer, and right now she's charging me a pretty good rate, and it's inexpensive, and I'm fine because she's really good. And
well, that's what
I will pay her more just to keep her around.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't want to underpay and then not get somebody quality. So I'm just kind of looking for what is I should look for. Okay, that helps a lot.
Great. Well, I have to get rolling.
Yes. It's 3:00.
But thank you all for
Thank you.
great questions. It's good to see everybody.
Thank you.
And everybody have a great week.
All
You
right, you
too.
too.
All right, see you soon.
All right,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.